run our world, the quality of our decisions is everything. And when we talk about AI's role in those systems, well, the conversation often goes astray. The key idea we're going to unpack here is that the primary value of artificial intelligence isn't really intelligence at all. It's visibility.
There's this common and pretty persistent belief that AI is on a direct path to just replace human judgment. It's a simple idea, it's dramatic, and it really does shape a lot of the talk around this technology. The thing is, it fundamentally misdiagnoses the problem that AI is actually here to solve.
So, to get this right, we're going to walk through 6 steps. First, we'll deconstruct this replacement myth. Then we'll dig into the real problem, structural blindness. From there, we'll reframe AI as a tool for visibility, compare human judgment versus AI-augmented judgment, look at the new ways this system can fail, and finally, pinpoint its true advantage, which is foresight. All right, let's start with the replacement myth itself. We need to examine why looking at AI as just a substitute for human judgment is a fundamental systemic mistake. So why does this myth stick around? Well, stories about replacement are compelling. They're dramatic, they're easy to wrap your head around. They give you a simple narrative for what is a very complex systemic shift. And honestly, that's often more appealing than a more nuanced structural explanation. But here's why the myth is just wrong. It completely ignores what judgment actually is. See, real judgment can't be separated from values. It requires you to shoulder responsibility, to be accountable for the consequences. And AI doesn't have any of these things. They are inherently human qualities. And AI is a tool, not a moral agent. And this brings us to a really core insight. AI's role isn't to take over the decision itself, but to completely transform how we prepare for it. The ownership of that final judgment and all of its consequences, that stays entirely with the human decision maker. So, if AI doesn't replace judgment, what problem does it actually solve? The answer really comes into focus when you realize that in complex systems, the issue is rarely a lack of judgment. It's the existence of structural blind spots that stop good judgment from being used effectively. Now, a blind spot in this context isn't a personal failure, like being ignorant or incompetent. No, it's a structural inability to see key factors. It's a limitation that's baked into the system itself. So what are these blind spots made of? Well, they can be missing information that was just never collected. They can be unseen correlations buried deep inside massive data sets. They might be probabilities that are just counterintuitive to us, or consequences that are so far down the road they seem completely disconnected from the original decision. And these blind spots, they're a direct result of our own cognitive limits. Our attention is finite. We reason sequentially, one step at a time. Our perception can be distorted by emotion, and we're often way too overconfident. And what's really crucial here is that as systems get bigger, faster, and more uncertain, these human constraints become serious liabilities, causing those blind spots to get even wider. Okay, so now we can start to reframe what AI is actually for. Instead of thinking of it as some kind of artificial judge, we can see it as a visibility tool, a mechanism specifically built to counteract our own built-in systemic blindness. You see, AI's strengths map almost perfectly onto our weaknesses. Where we think step by step, it can evaluate thousands of variables all at once, in parallel. Where we miss subtle patterns, it's designed for detection. It can simulate countless future scenarios and spot anomalies that are far beyond any human capacity. And this all leads to a core distinction. AI is not a decision-making entity. It's a revelation engine. Its job is to light up the hidden parts of the decision-making landscape, shifting the whole process from one that's driven by intuition to one that's informed by structure. So this lets us do a really direct side-by-side comparison of 2 very different systems, one running on human judgment alone and one running on AI-augmented judgment. The contrast in the process is pretty stark. Human-only judgment, it tends to be confident, very intuitive, but it can get really inconsistent when things get stressful. The AI-augmented process, on the other hand, is often slower, and that's because it surfaces more complexity. It forces you to make trade-offs explicit, and as a result, it delivers a much more consistent process, especially under pressure. Here's a concise way to think about it. The unaided human mind gets really good at making educated guesses within its field of view. The augmented system is designed to expand that field of view.
So, one guesses better, the other sees more.
But, and this is a really important but, this new system is not perfect. By getting rid of old blind spots, we actually introduce new and different ways for things to go wrong. It's a trade-off, not some kind of perfect solution.
This brings up a critical question. Where can this new augmented system actually break down? Understanding its failure modes is absolutely essential if we're going to use it effectively.
The system can fail in a few key ways. The data you feed the AI could be incomplete or biased. The objectives you give the system might be misaligned with what you're actually trying to achieve. The human operator can start to blindly trust the outputs without any scrutiny. And maybe the most dangerous failure of all, human judgment can become passive, basically giving up its responsibility to the tool. So let's pull all these ideas together now and really understand the ultimate advantage of this systemic shift when you apply it at scale. The first major implication is that unseen risks, those delayed consequences and hidden correlations, they get forced to the surface much, much earlier in the decision process. Second, because the process relies on explicit data and models, errors in judgment are no longer just a matter of a bad gut feeling. They become inspectable. You can actually audit the data, audit the logic, learn from the mistake, and improve the system itself. And third, this leads to a critical shift in who's on the hook. When a decision is supported by an AI tool that lays out the landscape of possibilities and risks, the accountability for the final choice, it shifts decisively upward to the human who actually owns the judgment. Ultimately, the goal of bringing AI into our decision-making isn't just to automate tasks. The real strategic advantage is the cultivation of foresight, the capacity to see more of the system more clearly before a choice is ever made. This channel explains money, artificial intelligence, and decision-making as interconnected systems. No hype, no gurus, no personal branding. New videos weekly.